Hello everyone. Welcome to .NET Tricks YouTube channel. Today we are going to start with how to implement microservices architecture using the .NET. I hope I'm audible to you. Please do confirm through the chat window if you can hear me properly. And guys, if you are coming to the .NET X YouTube channel first time, I request you to please do subscribe to .NET X YouTube channel so that you will get the information about our upcoming free training on DevOps, Microsoft Azure, on ASP.NET Core, Angular, React. What are the in-demand technology we having? We keep doing such events. So please do subscribe. Okay, thank you for the confirmation. I'm audible to you. Okay, so let's get started. The agenda of this session. So today I'm not covering here the more theoretical part because such session I already taken about the microservices. Today my focus would be on how to implement the microservices architecture in your .NET application. So my name is Shalin Chauhan, I'm Microsoft MVP, technical consultant, corporate trainer. I'm having around 12 years of experience of web development, training, and consulting. So let's get started with this session. So in this session, we are just going to start with like how we can build the microservices using the ASP.NET Core. Then I will tell you about the Ocelot API gateway pattern. Sorry, the API gateway pattern we will implement here using the Ocelot API gateway, which the people use with the .NET. And guys, here how many people having the Visual Studio 2019 on a machine? Please do confirm through the chat window because side by side you can do the hands-on with me. Can you confirm how many people having the Visual Studio 2019 on their machine? Because I request you to please do the hands-on with me. Okay, so to get started with microservices, I'm sharing the what are the various version you should have. So as a development framework, you can go ahead with the .NET if you're a .NET developer. So obviously we will use a .NET. If you are a JavaScript developer, you can go ahead with the JavaScript and Node.js. If you are a Java developer, you can go ahead with the Java over there. So in this session, I'm just going to use here .NET, but microservices you can build using any framework, whatever you like. But I like here .NET, and I think you also like the .NET. How many people like here .NET? Can you confirm through the chat window? Okay, now let's have a look. What are the various tools you needed if you're planning to build the microservices using the .NET? So here you need to have the Visual Studio 2019 latest version over here. You should have the SQL Server. You should have the Postman as an API gateway. We will use here Ocelot API gateway. We will use his Swagger for documenting our microservices. We will use here RabbitMQ. So RabbitMQ is needed if you are willing to implement the message-based communication pattern in the microservices. As your subscription you needed, if you have any plan to deploy your microservices to the cloud, you need the mass transit. It is a framework which is going to simplify the communication between the RabbitMQ and your application. You need the Docker desktop as well if you have decided to deploy the microservice as a containers. And in Azure, we having the Azure AKS. So what are the tools I'm showing here in this picture? So these are the various tools mastery you needed to get started with the microservices. Even as a .NET developer, as a .NET Core developer, if you have decided to implement the microservices architecture, so these tools you should note down and should always practice them. So how many people are planning to implement the microservices architecture in their upcoming project? Can you confirm through the chat window? Like we have decided and it happens in your company the microservices architecture might be decided. So if you have decided, so these are the tools you should have. Okay, now let's see how we are going to build the microservices here using the ASP.NET Core. So in that case, make sure you know about the microservices concept, because theoretical part I'm not covering here. My focus would be here on the hands-on side. So when we build the microservices, we build the microservices separately. So microservice is a independent unit, whatever the project we have building over there. So microservices we build like this way. So we having the independent unit over there, which having its own database, and we never provide the direct access to the microservices. We always expose them through the API gateway. So API gateway would be here the end, will provide here a common endpoint for accessing our microservices. So through the API gateway, we will provide the access. So this is the API gateway. So whenever the request will come here, it will goes to the this catalog, and finally it will return back the response, and finally the response back to the shopping website. So this is the way we will build it. And when it is coming to building all the things, so obviously all the things we will build them using the ASP.NET Core. So what is happening here, we are just going to break down our existing application into the more smaller and independent managed unit, so that we can manage them independently, we can deploy them independently, we can build them independently. So when it is coming to the back end, when it is coming the front end, so back end also we are just going to decompose into the smaller unit. You can see in the picture, we having here back end, we having here front end. If you're looking at here, these are my back end services. If you're looking to the front end, these are my front end side. In the front end, we having a single unit. That single website, we just broke down into two smaller one. So we having here the shopping website, we having here internet support website. Similar way, you can have the others UI also, simply. So this is the way how the front end we have divided into the smaller unit, how the back end we have divided into smaller unit, and they are communicating to each other through the API gateway pattern. So here you can have multiple API gateways. So as an API gateway, whatever the framework you are using, based upon that you can access them. And you can see here we are exposing the few things to the internet. This is the way how the from the internet we are accessing here. This is the way how we are accessing at the internet level. So this is internet level access. This is the internet level access. So this is the way how the things we need to build when we are building the microservices. And when it is coming to the communication between the microservices, so microservices communicate to each other through the event bus. So we having the event bus. So event bus, we can implement using the RabbitMQ. We can implement here using the uh, Azure Service Bus. We having the various option over there, simply. So let's see how we can create these backend microservices, and then we will proceed to the things over there. So how many people having the Visual Studio? Please open your Visual Studio. Let's get started to build the microservices. It's not a theoretical session. I'm told you already. It's a complete practical one. If you're looking at in this picture, we are implementing many design pattern, API gateway pattern we are using here. If you're coming to the various design patterns, let me share here the list of design pattern. I think the people are interested around that one also. So these are the various microservices design pattern are available. So let me cover them the quickly so that you having the understanding around those. So you can see here we having the decomposition pattern. So decomposition pattern decide how the existing application we can decompose into the more smaller unit. Let's say if we're going to start a new project as well. So in that case also, we need to decide how many microservices we should design. So the decision is going to be taken care of based upon the business capability, based upon the subdomain we having in our application. So these two pattern we are going to take care of, when it is coming to deciding how many businesses we need, how many microservices we need to create over there. If you're having an existing application, for the existing application we use this strangler pattern. So this is for older application which are willing to migrate to the new one. We having the integration pattern. In the integration pattern we having the API gateway pattern which we are going to implement recently in this today session as well, using the Ocelot API gateway. We having an aggregator pattern that we can also implement using the Ocelot API gateway. Then we having a client side UI composition pattern. So this can be implemented easily if you're using the Angular and the React, and there we can use the various components for composing the UI, and each component can get the data from the different microservice. So that is can be done with the help of composition pattern. When it is coming to the database, pattern is going to decide it how the microservices will use their own database. So commonly we use the database per service pattern, but you can use the shared database as well, where more than one microservices can share a one database. Then we having here the CQRS pattern over there. Whenever you're going to separate the read operation from the command one, then we can have a CQRS pattern here. Then we having a Saga pattern when it is coming to the maintaining the transaction across the microservices. We having the Saga pattern over there. And if you're willing to communicate between the microservices, there we use communication pattern. In the communication, we having here request response. We having here the messaging pattern. We having here the event pattern. So we having here various ways how the microservices can communicate to each other. So there can be the synchronous communication and there can be the asynchronous over there. Then we having here cross-cutting concern patterns. That is about how we should manage the configuration settings. So do you can use over there key vault. We having a service discovery pattern. We having a circuit breaker pattern. So these patterns are coming inside the cross-cutting concern patterns over there. Then we having your observability patterns, how you should observe the microservices architecture. So obviously you should log the microservices, and then we should do the log aggregation. We should uh, trace them, and we should find out the performance metrics over there. So we having the various tools for doing these activity. So we having here the Alki stack, we having here the open telemetry. These are various tools are available where with the help of them you can implement the observability pattern. And when it is coming to the deployment, for the deployment you can use the virtual machine, you can use the Azure function as well. You can use here the Azure AKS and the containers. So it's would be decided what style you're willing to use over there. So I just given here the a brief idea about the each types of pattern so that you having the understanding. I hope it makes sense to you. Yeah, and told already the CQRS is here for performing the query operation, and you are separating the query and command operation. Okay, so let's get started with the hands-on part. I just done with this introduction part. Okay, so we are just going to implement here the API gateway pattern like this way. Okay, so first what we need to do here, we need to just build our catalog microservice. So please open your Visual Studio immediately. Now let's start with create a new project. How many people are following to me? Can you confirm through the chat window? And now just look for the blank solution. Make sure everyone is searching for the blank solution on your Visual Studio. Are you on the same step where I'm right now? Please do confirm through the chat window, please. Okay, thank you for the confirmation. At the end of this session, you'll be able to have your microservices with you. So please go ahead. Okay, thank you for the confirmation. So make sure you have make a search for blank solution. I hope you made the search for blank solution here. Then click on the next button. I'm defining my solution name. Let's say microservices app, and I can give here, let's say 8 p.m. is my, let's say, project name. I'm defining the location. I'm just creating here a blank solution. Now that blank solution location into define, I'm defining the location in the desktop, and then I'm having here code, and here let's say I'm keeping this folder. You can keep anywhere, it's up to you, it's your system. So I'm just creating here a blank solution. Even I have created successfully. I hope you have also created. And please, guys, please keep posting your status on the chat window. If you have created, if you have not created, okay, that's great. Now I'm just doing right click here. I'm just going to add here a new project. I'm adding here a new project. So we are just going to build here our first microservice. That first microservice we are going to build here using the catalog, which will return us the list of catalog. Guys, if you are using the Visual Studio 2017, there also the same thing you can follow here. Don't worry. Now here, just make a search for the web API. I'm using here the web API template. So we'll find out this option ASP.NET Core Web API. I hope everyone finding out the ASP.NET Core Web API option. Okay, that's great. Select this option to create your first API. I'm defining my API name. The API name is, let's say, catalog service. Make sure everyone is giving the same name. Project name as catalog service. Okay, thank you if you are following. And guys, please follow the steps fast because we need to write a lot of code. Just click on the next button here. Then what I'm doing here, I'm just selecting here target framework as .NET 5. Is somebody not having the Visual Studio 2019? So you might have the target framework .NET 3.1 or like 2.1. So don't worry, you can take it. Just go ahead. So make sure you are taking the target framework as .NET 5. I'm using here .NET 5. You can take 3.1 also. There is no issue. So don't worry. So I'm just clicking on the button here to get started with my first backend microservice. So we added a successfully our catalog service that is going to be used as a backend microservice over there. Now what I can do here, you will find out here default controller and default model. So let's leave it as it is. And now we need to create here a database. We need to connect to the database. So here you can add others folder as well in the microservices. So I'm just adding one thing here. I'm just adding here a folder for accessing the database. So let's say the folder name I'm using here database. You can keep it separately as well, but I'm putting everything inside the one project so that it is easy to do the hands-on for this session. So I just added here a new folder in my project with the name database. So now this database folder, let's quickly add the new classes. I'm just adding here a class for entity. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going to add a class for my product. So what we will do here, we're just going to store our product information, obviously in the product table. So for product table, I'm just using here the product class. I'm just adding a product class. Vivek, if you're not getting the Web API project, just select here ASP.NET Core application. I think you're having the older version. So when you will go to the next screen, there you will have the ASP.NET Core Web API option. Don't worry. So I'm just using here my class name as product. I hope guys you are following to me. Can you confirm through the chat window if you are following to me immediately? Okay, so thank you for, so what I'm doing here, I'm just adding here the product class. In the product class, I'm adding here the product properties. Let's say I'm adding here product ID. I'm adding here, let's say the name. I'm adding here, let's say the other things. Let's say I'm adding here a string as description. And let's say I'm adding here the another things as well. I'm keeping the things very much simple so that you able to understand the things how we are building. So I just added here a simple product class containing the product ID, name, description, and unit price. And guys, if you're facing the issue while following the things, I can share the code in the chat window as well. You can copy the code from the chat. I shared it in the chat because we need the speed. So now guys, I hope everyone has created the product class. Even code also is shared through the chat window if you are not able to do the thing. So from the chat, you can copy and paste it. So now just do one thing. I'm just going to use here the entity framework core. So for entity framework core, just do one thing. Just to right click on the dependencies, then we having the option here, manage NuGet packages. So make sure guys, you have selected here the option manage NuGet packages. I hope everyone is clicking on the dependencies and there we will have the option manage NuGet packages. Then go for the browse option over there. And in the browse, I'm just making search for entity framework core. So we are going to use here the entity framework core. Make sure you are searching for the NuGet package for entity framework core. Now just install this package. That is about entity framework core. I'm installing it. And we are installing the entity framework core latest version. So if you're willing to search, I shared the name of uh, the search text in the chat window. From there you can copy and please make a search to find out the entity framework core package. So you can see this is the first package I have installed. The second package which you need to install it here about SQL Server. I'm installing my SQL Server package because as a database we are using here SQL Server. Please install it SQL Server as well. And then we having here the tools. So you need to install here 3 packages. All the 3 packages name I will share in the chat window if I'm not able to find them. So the first package is here about the entity framework core. So this is the first package. The name I'm sharing in the chat window, I will share them together so that you will not miss them. This is the first package, Microsoft Entity Framework Core. The second package is about Microsoft Entity Framework Core SQL Server. And third package is about the tools, Microsoft Entity Framework Core tools. So these are the 3 packages you need to install. And I'm just sharing these 3 names in the chat as well so that you can find out them and use. Guys, please do confirm when you will install these packages so that we can proceed further. Until you will not complete, I will not proceed further. Don't worry. So make sure everyone is trying to install these 3 packages. The name also is shared through the chat window. And when you will install, please do confirm, do thumbs up if you have done it. Very good. All so many people have installed the 3 packages. Please do confirm if you have installed these 3 packages. Okay. So let's go ahead here to the next one here. The next is here. Just add a one more class here in the database folder. I'm adding here a one more class. And this time the class name is here database context. So I'm adding here a class and the name is here database context. So we added here database context class. And now let's inherit it from the DB context class. So I just added I added a class in my database folder. I'm just inheriting it from the DB context class. So DB context is a built-in class in the Microsoft Entity Framework Core uh, NuGet package. So this namespace, make sure you have installed. So this namespace is coming. What are the packages we have installed? Okay. Now just add here a property for the DB set, and I'm using here the product. I'm adding here the product now. Now define it as products. So I added here the product DB set inside my database context class so that we can proceed further over there. Simply. So I hope everyone has created this one. Can you confirm through the chat window if you have created it? So that we can go ahead over there. Now what we need to do here, we need to define the database connection string as well. So database connection string I will define in my app setting.json. I'm adding here is a simple constructor, I'm adding. Now let me inherit it from the, let me pass the DB context option I'm using here, and just do pass here this class name, and make sure guys you're giving the same name for your classes and the properties I'm using here so that you will not face any issues. This is the way I'm just defining your options. I'm putting it this way. Don't worry, I'm sharing this code with you so that you can copy and go ahead. So code I shared through the chat window. So from there you can copy. I hope it makes sense now. We have done it. Now it's time to define the connection string. So open your app setting.json file, and here I'm defining my connection string. Guys, can you confirm through the chat window? Have you completed the database context part? Can you confirm me? I'm defining here my default connection. Then do pass here connection string value. How many people completed the database context class part? Can you confirm through the chat window? I'm defining here the connection string here as per my system. So let me define here the connection string as per my system. Code I will upload, don't worry. Now do focus on doing the hands-on. So I'm defining my service name here as catalog service 8 p.m. So this is the way you need to define here a connection string. So a connection string I'm defining here. So make sure you have also defined in app setting.json. This video will available after the session. So guys, please do confirm if you have completed these two things: database context, class file code, and app setting.json file. Have you completed this one? Okay, thank you. So what we have done here so far, we just added here the product class. Over here, it's about the entity framework core. Simply, we are not doing anything here. This is the way how we define the entity framework core database connection string. Now, this database context I need to add in this startup.cs file. In startup.cs file, I will add it. And guys, here make sure whenever you are using my database connection string, you have updated your database server name, you have updated your user ID, and you have updated your password as well. So this thing, as for my machine, in your machine you having the different one. So make sure you having the exactly same thing. I'm opening the SQL server here, and I can see this is my server name, this is my login assay, and this is my password. So make sure you have did the same thing. And right now if you'll be looking at here, I don't have any catalog service with the name 8 p.m. Same thing I did here. Make sure you have updated the detail. Don't follow the things blindly. Okay, now what I need to do here, I need to just add here that database context setting here. I'm just adding here services dot add db context. I'm adding here that, and now what are the database context class we having, just add that class reference over there. So this way I'm adding here database context class. Now define here the options. So as the option I'm using here SQL Server, and I will pass my connection string over there. Options dot use SQL Server. This is the way I'm just using here the option. I'm do pass here missing namespace as well. So I already added the missing namespace configuration, then get connection string, define the connection string name. So connection string name is here default connection simply. So this is the way how we added the things here without any issue. So make sure we are going to configure our database context class setting from the startup.cs file, and from there we are passing the connection string as well. Same thing I did here. The same connection string I'm using here. Connection string name is default connection. I'm putting code I already shared through the chat window. You can copy from there. Don't worry. I hope you have completed this setting. And if you have completed, now we are ready to create the database. So now let's create the database here. So we having here uh, tools, and in the tools we having here package manager console. So open here your package manager console to create the database. So I'm just going to use here the entity framework core code first approach. So code first approach I'm using here. So make sure you have opened the package manager console by looking this option. Package manager console, NuGet package manager, and this is the option you will find out. Are you getting this option? Package manager console. Okay, now just make sure your project is building without any error. In my case, I hope it is building fine. There is no error in my case. And same behavior, make sure you're also getting. So open here package manager console. Now run the command here, add migration. I'm using here entity framework core migration. I'm just going to create a migration file by running the command add dash migration. I'm just sharing the same command in the chat. From there you can copy. So make sure you are running the command add dash migration and initial. Kranti, if you're getting the error while installing the packages, please try to run them again. I hope you'll be able to run it. Okay. So I just run this command. Now I need to run the next command. Next command is here. And when you run this command, you will find out the table is going to be created. Migration file has been generated. Now run the next command that is about update dash database. Update dash database command I'm running to create my database. And after running this command, I hope your database has been created. You should verify in the database if everything is fine there or not. So we'll figure out there is a one catalog service 8 p.m. and then this is my table, and you can see the product table is here. Now in the product table I will add a one entry So I'm adding here the product name. Let's say I'm adding here product name, micro services training. Description is same, microservices training. Then we can have the unit price, let's say 18,000 rupee. So this is the way we added here the microservices training as a product. Let's think about we are building the ED Tech company things. So in the ED Tech, the training is the things over there. If you're getting the error add migration is not added, so make sure you have installed the NuGet package for tools. I'm sure you have not installed this package, this one. Microsoft Entity Framework Core tool package. If you will install, you will not get this error. Otherwise, you will get this error simply. So make sure you have installed this package and make sure your command is also correct. It's add, not dd.des migration. So I hope guys, everyone is able to create the database. Can you confirm through the chat window if you have successfully created the database? Because my side it has been generated. Please do confirm from your end so that we can proceed further. Okay, few people are able to generate the things. Very good. What about others? Make sure you have added a record also there so that whenever we will query, we able to fetch the data from there. Have you added the record also in the table? Okay, thank you for the confirmation. So people are able to generate the things. Okay, that's great. So what is happening here? We successfully created our catalog microservice and its database. So now let's create our API gateway. So now we are going to proceed to the next step. Next step is here how we can integrate the API gateway. So before integrating the API gateway, now let's understand what is the benefit of using the API gateway here. So when it is coming to the API gateway, so API gateway is going to help us to implement the API gateway pattern. And here it is going to provide the unified endpoint for accessing your backend microservices. So you can say the API gateway acting as a proxy service to route your incoming request to the backend microservice behind the scene. Even using the API gateway, we can aggregate the result and the result we can send back to the consumer. Even we having the other features as well. It's a authentication, authorization. So various things we can do here with the help of API gateway pattern. So when it is coming to the complete workflow, you can see in the picture from the client end, we are trying to access our backend microservices. So those backend microservices, we are not accessing one by one because each microservice having its own address. So we just having a API gateway through that, we are able to access them simply. So API gateway is helping us to reroute the incoming request to the respective backend microservice this way. So when it is coming to what are the various options are available for the API gateway, so in .NET we can go ahead with the open source API gateway, which are here Ocelot and the Nginx. So we having here Ocelot and Nginx. So these are the free and open source API gateway. We can go ahead. So Nginx Ingress controller you can use as an API gateway. So these two are free one you can use. But if you're looking for the paid one and the cloud one, so in the Azure we having the Azure API management. In AWS we having the AWS API management. So we having the cloud manage and we having the free and open source simply. So in this today's session, we are just going to implement here this Ocelot API gateway. So how this Ocelot API gateway we will use to connect our backend microservices. But if you're willing to try the another one as well, you can try. This is from Azure, this is from AWS, and this is from the Nginx site. Simply. So let's see how we can use here the Ocelot one here. So when it is coming to the Ocelot one, so Ocelot is a API gateway which is free and open source API gateway for the .NET platform. It is lightweight and it's not having any dependency on a specific cloud. If you're using the Ocelot API gateway, so your microservices based application can be deployed anywhere. It can be AWS, it can be sorry, Google Cloud, it can be the Microsoft Azure, even it can be your on-prem environment as well. Anywhere you can deploy your microservices based application. Even Microsoft internally using the Ocelot API gateway. So these are the features the Ocelot API gateway is offering to us: authentication, authorization, logging, load balancing, service discovery, caching. So let's see how we can use the Ocelot API gateway for integrating it. So just guys, follow to me. Now just create a one more project here. I'm just going to add a new project. And again, I'm adding here the ASP.NET Core Web App. But this time I'm not using here Web API. I'm not using here the MVC. I'm just going to select here ASP.NET Core MT Web App here. Guys, I cannot implement any API gateway which is not accessible to everyone, because I know here the people don't have the AWS account and Azure account. So that's why any paid payment, any paid API gateway I'm not implementing here. I'm using only that API gateway that is free to use. You don't need to have any account. So I'm just using here ASP.NET Core Web App. Make sure you have selected the same template. Define the project name. Let's say API Gateway. API Gateway. So I'm just adding here my project name as API Gateway. Project name can be anything. It's simple. I'm using here API Gateway. Then same way .NET 5 and HTTPS. So we added the project for our API gateway as well. This way. Oh, sorry. Okay, that's fine. We are not using here any MVC one. That's fine. I can remove it. Not an issue. That's fine. It should be the empty template. So guys, here one thing I forget here. I have not added my catalog microservice. So just do one thing in the controllers folder. Just do right click. So how many people added this API gateway project? Can you confirm through the chat window? If you have added it here. If you have not added, I can show you again. Let me delete it. And this is my API gateway. I'm just showing the again option how you can add it. Let's say API, or just go ahead with ASP.NET Core Web App. This one. So make sure you have selected the ASP.NET Web App API gateway this way. Project I'm adding. Okay, that's good. If you have added the project, that's great. So now let's add here the catalog controller. I'm just doing right click here. I'm just adding here a controller, and I'm just going to add here my API controller. And this controller I'm adding in my catalog service, not in the API gateway. So make sure now you are inside the catalog service, and from there I'm doing it simply. Okay, so make sure you are selecting here API controller empty. Click on that button. I'm just defining my controller name as catalog controller. So make sure you are going to add here the API for doing the things simply. So this is the one I'm adding here. Click on that button. So we added here our catalog controller. Now I can add here a constructor, and here let me inject here my database context. I'm just using here database context, that is underscore DB. I'm using here the constructor injection for my database instance like this way. Now let me define here a public I enumerable the product. I'm just going to return here the list of products here. So I'm adding here a method get products. And finally using the DB, then we having here products and then do list. I'm just going to return here the list of product here simply. So same thing I'm doing here this way. So what I'm doing here, I'm just adding here a simple catalog controller where we injected our database context class. Now using the database context class, we're returning the list of product. Make sure you have decorated this get products using HTTP get here. And this is the way, make sure you have defined the things for your catalog one. The code I'm sharing through the chat window. If you're willing to copy, you can copy from the chat. So I hope everyone has completed the catalog controller code. Have you completed this one? Can you confirm guys through the chat window if you're working? Okay, Vivek has done. What about others? Have you completed this catalog controller code? Okay, very good. If you have completed. So now let's test this API to make sure everything is working fine. I'm running my catalog service project, and now let's verify everything is working in good condition. So we'll find out here Swagger. You can see there is a Swagger screen is coming, and we having here this catalog service. And now using the Swagger UI, I can test it. I'm just running here. I'm just expanding this section API/controller. Then try it out. Then click on the execute button, and after some time you will get here data. So this is the way I'm getting the data here perfectly. So in my case, it is responding properly. You can see this is the status code. This is the data I'm getting here. So everything is working fine in my case. What about you? Are you getting the same output at your side as well? So guys, have you tested your web API? Is it working fine? Okay, Richa is getting the same output. What about others? Guys, please do confirm quickly. Okay, it's working fine. And meanwhile, guys, if you're coming to this channel first time, I request you to please do subscribe to .NET Ace YouTube channel so that such training you can join in future as well at free of course. You don't need to pay anything. Okay, that's great, Gopal. It's working fine. Okay, that's good. So I hope everyone has completed this API. Now let's proceed to the next step. That is about connecting it with my API gateway. So guys, here when it is coming to here the Ocelot one. So for the Ocelot one, we having here, I can open here my private window, and here the Ocelot having a documentation. There I can go ahead. The Ocelot docs. We'll find out here this link where you can find out the documentation about the Ocelot API gateway. This is the Ocelot API gateway. And if it is coming here, they mention how we can configure this API gateway with the ASP.NET Core application. So they just mention few settings, how we can set up it. So same way we will set up it with our project as well, simply. So before using the Ocelot API gateway, make sure you have just added the Ocelot API gateway NuGet package. So now just go to the API gateway, and there you will find out the option browse, and we having here the Ocelot API gateway. So just make a search for Ocelot over there, and you will have this package. So this Ocelot package you need to install in your application. In API gateway project, I'm installing the Ocelot package simply. So make sure you have installed the Ocelot package. The name of the API gateway is shared through the chat window. From there, you can copy and use it. And after this, what I need to do here, I need to just add here a JSON file. I'm just adding here a JSON file at the API gateway label. So we having here the general and web, and you will find out here a JSON file, especially for npm, and define your file name as ocelot.json. So file name can be anything here. It can be Ocelot, it can be others name as well. It's up to you. So here I'm just using the file name as Ocelot1. So Ocelot.json file I'm adding here. Just click on the add button. And now on, let me remove everything, whatever we having the extra things over this way. So make sure everyone has added a JSON file with the name Ocelot.json. Now here, as per the documentation, you need to configure the things. You need to configure here the routes. You need to configure here this global configuration. Let me put here. So two sections need to define here, a section for routes, a section for global configuration. So in the route, we can define the route for our backend microservices. So what are the backend microservices having here? Let me define here the routes. So the for the routing, they having a routing option here. They mention how we can define the route. Let me copy here the route object I'm putting simply this way. So in my case, what is our API? So API name is here catalog, and what is the port number we having here for API? Our catalog API. So we having this port number 44361. In your case, the port number can be different. In my case, this is the port number I'm having. So I'm using here the catalog, and what method I can allow? I can allow here get post and delete method. It's up to you what method you're going to allow here. So this way we added here our first route inside this ocelot.json. So guys, here make sure you have find out the port number for your catalog service. From this catalog service properties folder, we having a file launch setting.json, and there you will find out this IS Express. So from the IS Express, I'm using this port number 44361 simply. If you need this code, I can share through the chat. From there, you can copy and use it. So code I shared through the chat, you can copy and use it. Just download the latest version of Ocelot. So I hope everyone has completed this setup. Now the next setup is about the global configuration. So global, let's make it empty right now. I'm not doing anything. Now let me set up here in program.cs file. In program.cs file, not an issue with 3.1, it will work. Don't worry. Just use it. Okay, so now just add here this JSON file into your startup.cs file. So we having the configuration. In the configuration, they mention the way how we can add this one here. Okay, so now just add here a one thing here. The one thing which you need to add here, the configure app setting. So we having a method configure app configuration, and then we having here hosting and config. So HCTX means context, then we having here config. This one. Let me set up it here. So I'm just going to set up here my JSON file and JSON file. What is the file name? File name here ocelot.json. So make sure you added this one in the program.cs file in your application. To set up your Ocelot API gateway, I added over there. So simply I added them. Now in the startup class, I'm just going to configure it over there. So in a startup class, let me add here the dependencies for Ocelot. So you can see we having here this services. Let me add here the services dot add. We having here the Ocelot. I'm adding here the Ocelot as a dependency. So this one I added here. Now just add here the Ocelot here also. So the other thing you can remove if you want to remove, because we don't need these things. So I can remove them. In fact, the static file, the authentication, let's say I'm keeping here, because if you're willing to implement later on, and I'm just using here app.use Ocelot. This way. I'm using here the use Ocelot this way. So other things I have just removed. Even from here also I can remove it. I just added here this configure service method that is simply containing the one things here, the Ocelot dependency support. Then in the configure method, we having a method here, use Ocelot, this one. So configure method I'm sharing with you, which you can copy and use it this way only. Okay, that is the only thing you need to do here in the API gateway. When you will complete, please do let me know if you have done it. So make sure you open here program.cs file. This is a code into right here. So guys, let's complete the program.cs file code. I just open my program.cs file. Have you opened it? And now open here the startup file. In the startup file, we added the same thing. Services.add ocelot and app.use ocelot. Have we completed the startup file code as well? And this code we are writing in the API Gateway project, not in the catalog service. So guys, can you confirm through the chat window if you have completed this one? What about others? Guys, quickly make sure everyone has completed this setting. If you have not completed, please do let me know. I can help you in that case. Okay, what about others? Ajay, Vishal, these people completed. Okay, Gopal also completed. What about others? So guys, please quickly confirm me if you have completed. If you are facing an issue, please do let me know. I can share the code because the code I'm sharing with you, I don't think you will face an issue. Okay, Avinash also completed. So good to go ahead now. Can you confirm through the chat window if we can proceed further? Shall we go ahead now? Okay, so if you're willing to test this combination now, if you're looking at here, we have completed with this setup. Like catalog we have added, API gateway we have added. Now we need to run the API gateway as well as this catalog service. These two things we need to build here. Now let me build the code. Now you need to run here multiple project, your API gateway as well as catalog service. API gateway and catalog service. Now run it. So I think in my case, this is the documentation. And if you're looking at here, this is my gateway and this is my service. So both are running here. If I'm willing to access my gateway, I can access it here using catalog one. Catalog. If everything is fine, you should get the data like this way. So you can see from the API gateway, I'm able to access my backend service. So I successfully established this communication. I'm making the request to my API gateway routing to the catalog one, returning the data back, and the data I'm getting to this one. So this complete workflow we have completed using this Ocelot API gateway. If you have done it, so congratulate to yourself. You have successfully built one backend microservices and you have connected it through the API gateway and now you are able to access it. Can you confirm through the chat window like how many people are able to get the output like this way? Okay, Vishal able to get the record as well. Very good. Well done. What about others? How many people able to get the record? Okay, Rich also did. Harish also did. What about others? Okay. So guys, here if you're looking at this picture, as per this picture, we able to call our backend microservice with the help of API gateway pattern when we are making the request. Actually, the session will available after the this one. Don't worry, you can browse the video later on. So guys, here this is the Ocelot API gateway feature. So whenever you are trying to access the things from the Ocelot API gateway, it is redirecting a request to the backend microservice. So that's why I said here it is working as a reverse proxy server. As we having the concept in the reverse proxy server, same you will find out over there. I hope it makes sense. Okay, so we have done with this setup. Similarly, we can add here the authentication microservice. You can add here the order microservice, and you can do the things. So we having these set of features. So these set of features can be implemented with the help of API gateway pattern. So when it is coming to the authentication, authorization, logging, load balancing, service discovery, caching. So these various features can be implemented with the help of API gateway pattern in your microservices based project. So today we will, if you will see here, we have implemented the first two, the traffic routing and the unified endpoint simply. When it is coming to the service communication, I told you about the communication pattern. So services can communicate to each other in synchronous style by using the request reply pattern, and in asynchronous style using the messages. So this is the way how the services are going to communicate to each other. Just remember this picture over there. And guys, if you're willing to understand here how the existing old application can be migrated to the microservices, then look at this picture to make the picture more clear. So look at here, let's say this is my traditional old style application which we build using the ASP.NET Core, where we have in the data access layer, where we accessing the database here like this way, database you are accessing. Then we having the business access layer. So this business access layer accessing the data, and these are the business access. These are the services we just added in my business layer, and this is my shopping website. So this is our UI. So this UI making the call to the Bell, and Bell is making the call to the Dell, and finally we are returning back like this way. So this is the way how the traditional application we build simply. If the same thing you will migrate to the microservices, it will become like this way. Even the same we are building. So this existing application now we break down into the microservices architecture like this way. So benefit of using the API gateway is it is now providing the unified endpoint. Just think about the Netflix and the Twitter. They having more than 500 microservices behind the scene. So if let's say those microservices need to call by the Netflix UI, let's say from any Netflix mobile application, so what will happen behind the scene? You need to have 500 endpoint for accessing all the 500 microservices. So instead of remembering the 500 endpoint, you need to just remember the few endpoints, which actually your API gateway endpoint. So instead of exposing each microservice, let's say accessing each microservice by using its own endpoint, we having a unified endpoint through that we accessing them. Even it's not about only the unified endpoint, it is going to help us to implement others benefit as well. It's authentication we can manage, authorization we can manage, caching we can manage, service discovery we can manage. So many things are going to be managed by the API gateway instead of doing such thing at each microservice level. Obviously, when it is coming to deployment to the Azure, there we use AKS. In Azure, you can use Azure Kubernetes Service for the deployment, and for the API gateway, you can use their Azure APIM. Anything else? Okay, now let me complete here the theory part as well to understand it more clear way. So if you're looking at here how the cloud computing has been evolved, how the development style has been changed. So guys, yeah, this is the way how the things, how the people build the application before. So initially, if you know, we follow the waterfall model. At that time, we follow the monolithic style for writing the code. We having the physical server for the deployment, and the data center level as well. We having the multiple server over there. Later on, we started to follow the agile methodology and tier application architecture. We having the virtual server, and there, this is the way how we design the things over there at application infrastructure level. But if you're looking for the current trend, in the current trend, we are using the DevOps as a development process. For application architecture, we are using the microservices one. For the deployment, we are using here containers. This is the way how the containers we are using. And for the application infrastructure, we are using the cloud. So this is the latest trend of building the modern application. So whenever it is coming to building the modern application, so people are using the microservices as application architecture. People are using the DevOps as a development process. They're using the containers for the deployment purpose. And for infrastructure, they're using the cloud. I hope it makes sense now how the things are connected to each other when it is coming to the cloud, containers, microservices, and the DevOps. So I hope guys it makes sense to understand the microservices, how you can build, how you can access, and how the things are happening over there. If you have any query, please do ask. I'm here to help you. This is the way how the things are going to be done over there. If you're comparing it the oldest style of one, so you can see initially we build the application as a monolithic style. Everything we write as a single unit. Later on, we started to use the N layer and tier architecture. Then we are now using the microservices. That is the further decomposition of the existing layer and tier simply. When it is coming to the port communication in the AKS, they communicate through the services. In the Kubernetes, we having the services, through the services, the communication will happen. And when it is coming to the DevOps and Agile, so actually the DevOps also containing the Agile benefit as well. Or you can say DevOps is the next extension to the Agile. Yeah, you have to create each microservice separately because each microservice you should build independently, deploy independently. They don't have any dependency on each other. Yeah, similar we need to add the another microservice as well. Deployment wise, it is exactly same as we deploy a single web API project, a single MVC project. But there we need to take care of the API gateway. Or if you're using the AKS one, so AKS is still need to remember over there. Then you can do it. Anything else? So guys, what are the queries you are having regarding your microservice? You can ask here. I'm here for next 5 minutes. After that, I will wrap up this session over there. I have done from my side here. Yeah, one microservice you can deploy as a single container. Even you can have the multiple container as well. It depends how many instances you're willing to run for your microservices. So depending upon that, it would be decided. For the whole flow, it's simple here. Just add here front end as well. From the front end, you can access this API gateway. So now what you need to do here, you need to just create the front end now. And from the front end, you can access this API gateway. So just add a UI at the UI label, just use this API gateway endpoint and consume this backend microservice simply. In the PPT, I don't have anything specific. If you can take the screenshot of the video, you able to get it. For the communication, I told you here need to implement the communication pattern. So for asynchronous style, we use messages. Using the event bus, the communication would be there. Microservices itself are not generating the identity token. You need to create a separate authentication service. This is my separate authentication service, which would be responsible for implementing the authentication. So authentication code, we will not write at each microservice label. We will write only at one place. And now this API gateway will responsible for the authentication and authorization purpose simply. So authentication authorization, we are not doing at each API label. It would be done through the API gateway only. So API gateway would be responsible for implementing the authentication authorization simply. Okay, we will arrange another session as well of the microservices. Let's see when I will have the next time availability. I'm sure we will arrange such session. Don't worry. Anything else? For the asynchronous communication, when it is coming to the microservices, you need to create a event bus over there. Through the event bus, the communication will happen. Not through the what we say the internal services. Thank you, Richa, for the you like it. And Nikhil, we can have a session on the Docker and the Kubernetes as well. So whenever next time I have the time, definitely I will schedule. Don't worry. Authentication authorization, I said it would be done at the API gateway label. This is the place where you need to write the code for authentication authorization simply. Event bus is same and service bus is same. Sorry, both are different, not the same. Okay, guys, I think I have given the answer of each and every query. And I request you to please do subscribe to .NET's YouTube channel and let us know your feedback. We will come up with the such session in future as well. Don't worry. Again, thank you for joining this session. I hope you will able to now implement the similar things in your other microservices whenever you're planning to implement it. Benefit of Ocelot, you will find out it's open source and it can be hosted anywhere in the Azure APIM. It would be only Azure. It cannot be on AWS and GCP. They having their own API gateway. Simply okay. Thank you. Bye.